I had this really stunning realization one day when I was running, and I saw someone about 30 yards ahead of me who was running. And I was thinking about this concept of the unified life and that we're all one, and seeing the big picture and seeing ourselves as all connected and that we all come from a oneness. And because we're so stuck on our separateness, and I was looking at this runner some yards ahead of me, thinking, how could it be that I am connected to that person? I don't know him. I don't know his name. I don't know anything about him. How could there be any connection between us? It was like this thing dawned on me that I am already an I that is we. In other words, I have many different life forms on me. In my eyelids, I have thousands of bacteria. In my pancreas, in my ears, and all over me, I have like thousands of these different life forms. And yet I think of myself as a singular unit, but I am made up of a lot of life, a lot of stuff that is alive. So if you can get back far enough, again, it's always a question of perspective. If you could leave Earth plane, and you can only do that in thought, and look down and try to see humanity, you would really see one body. I mean, if you could get away far enough, you would see, and it would look, as you get closer and closer and closer, just like as you get closer and closer with a microscope, into a raindrop. A raindrop looks like a raindrop until you start examining it closer and closer and closer, and then you see whole universes within one section of it that have never even had any contact with the other section of it. And so, well, that's the perspective you have to get on us all being connected. We only see it from this very tiny perspective. Now, how you can apply this in your life is just to remind yourself that just because there's a distance between you and somebody else doesn't mean that there's not a connection. That's the beauty of thought again. It wasn't, an hour ago that someone here at the studio said something to me about her father. And I said to her, well, get me your father's address and I'll send him a copy of one of my books. And she said, oh, he would really like that. And then she started talking about her aunt. And she was doing like a little imitation, and it was really funny. And she said, oh, my aunt just loves you. And she lives down in Florida. She said, she loves you. And I said, well, get me her address, and I'll send her one, too. I'd be happy to. And she didn't say anything at that moment. But then as she came to go to lunch with us, she said, you're not going to believe this, but my father called right after I talked to you, and he gave me my aunt's address, which I didn't have before. And she said, isn't that a coincidence? And I said, that isn't any more of a coincidence than that we've been talking about this very thing right here for the last several hours here in the studio in Chicago today, that there is a connection and that you'll see it when you believe it. And all I suggest to you is that you try it. If you pull into a gas station and somebody is right up ahead of you and they're parked in a place where you think you should be, and if they were only up at the pump a little further away, then you would be able to be happy and they would be able to be happy. Don't tell yourself that. See them as being exactly where they are, that you're connected to them, and treat them that way so that you don't treat them with anger. You accept it. It's always acceptance. It's openness and acceptance. What you do is you just pull up in front of them and back your car up a little bit and use that pump. Don't treat that person as if they were separate from you. Treat them as if they were a part of you, because they are. It's just that you can't see the perspective. You will be able to see that perspective. You'll get that when you leave this form that you're so attached to and go into another dimension. You'll see all of humanity as one. You are one of the pieces of this puzzle called humanity. And if you are missing from it, or if you're incomplete, or if you're not in harmony, then you make all of humanity incomplete. And that's exactly how important you are as a person. And if you just start thinking like that, that everybody out there that you run into is somehow, in some way, connected to you, you stop being antagonistic toward them, because you know that if you got antagonistic toward the microbes that live inside the lining of your large intestine and just didn't want them there and said, oh, I'm going to do everything I can to get them out of there, that would kill you. You literally need that life, that I that is we, the self-contained unit that is comprised of all of life. You have to have all of that. It's equally true on a different level for all of humanity. And you start seeing everybody like that. And before long, you'll start seeing the connections. They'll start being there, but only when you believe it. Resist not evil means giving up fighting your problems. I want to stress again the significance of removing force from your life as a way of achieving a problem-free life. When you become a fighter against anything, you join forces with that which created the problem in the first place. When Mother Teresa was asked during the Vietnam War, will you join our march against this war? She replied, no, I won't. But if you have a march for peace, I'll be there.
When we put our collective energy on what we are for, bringing kindness and love to bear on our differences of opinions, the need to resist ends. It is only through a change in consciousness that our world will be transformed. This is true of your life and all of your problems as well. Hold no one or no thing in judgment. In the material world, we often find ourselves in conflict because of our opinions about right and wrong. You cannot bring spiritual harmony into problem resolution as long as you accept the idea that one side is right and the other is wrong. Letting go of judgments and simply finding a way of bringing non-judgmental harmony to a problem eliminates the ego's need to make someone wrong, which inevitably exacerbates the problem. One of the most compelling ideas I have personally learned regarding judgment is this. When you judge another person, you do not define them. You merely define yourself as someone who needs to judge. Just because you make an assertion that someone is stupid or cheap or arrogant or flighty or promiscuous does not define that person. It only says something in you is having a conflict with something outside of you. If judgment continues without seeking the source of the conflict within you, problems will continue unabated. Your own level of spiritual energy is immediately raised when you are able to resist that temptation to judge others as wrong and yourself as right. True nobility is not about being better than anyone else. It is about being better than you used to be. Knowing that you have just as much to teach me as I to teach you affirms for me that I am not better than any person out there on this planet. Yet at the same time, I know that I am better than I used to be. Much better. I am no longer dominated by my ego's need to be right, to accomplish and triumph. I now ask how may I serve before wondering what's in it for me. I teach meditation rather than medication, and I'm a better father, husband, and son than I once was. You must slow down to speed up your spiritual energy. Ironically, fast-paced, frantic activity is a very low, slow form of energy. When your mind and your body are in a constant state of worry and anxiety, meeting deadlines and scurrying to keep the next appointment, remember that in the world of physical form, the actual energy pattern is extremely slow. Hence the irony when you slow yourself down and emanate peaceful, tranquil thoughts, you actually send the anxiety and stress out of your life. Similarly, when you meditate, you bring God's silent love into your present moments. By slowing your mind and freeing it from the endless chatter of thoughts competing against other thoughts, you allow the fastest vibrations of spirit to enter. I have used a technique in traffic to slow my mind down and consequently allow the peace of God's fast vibrations to be present within me. When I am stopped at a red light, I usually choose to use this minute to still and stop my mind as well. I find that I can simply close my eyes, meditate for the prescribed stoppage time, and experience the peace of that moment. I have also discovered that there is almost always someone behind me who will give me a considerate wake-up honk to remind me that my meditation time is up. Here is one of the most famous prayers of all time. It's the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, upon which the remainder of this program is based. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, it is in dying to self that we are born to eternal life. St. Francis of Assisi.
What follows are 4 ways of thinking that can prevent you from reaching for and connecting to the universal creative spirit of intention. First, thinking about what's missing in your life. To match up with intention, you first have to catch yourself in the moment that you're thinking about what's missing, and then shift to intention. Not what I find missing in my life, but to what I absolutely intend to manifest and attract into my life, with no doubts, no waffling, and no explaining. Here are some suggestions I'm going to offer you to help you to break the habit of focusing your thoughts on what's missing. Play a version of the match game and match up with the all-creating force. Here's a no match. I don't have enough money. Here's a match. I intend to attract unlimited abundance into my life. Here's a no match. My partner is grouchy and boring. Here's a match. I intend to focus my thoughts on what I love about my partner. Here's a no match. I'm not as attractive as I'd like to be. Here's a match. I'm perfect in the eyes of God, a divine manifestation of the process of creation. This isn't a game of empty affirmations. It's a way of matching yourself to the power of intention and recognizing that what you think about is what expands. If you spend your time thinking about what's missing, then that's what expands in your life. Monitor your inner dialogue and match your thoughts to what you want and intend to create. Here's a second way of thinking. Thinking about the circumstances of your life. If you don't like some of the circumstances of your life, by all means, don't think about them. This may sound like a paradox to you. In this match game, you want to match up with the spirit of creation. You must train your imagination, which is the universal mind running through you, to shift from what you don't want to what you do want. All of that mental energy you spend complaining about what is, to anyone who will listen, is a magnet for attracting more of it into your life. You, and only you, can overcome this impediment because you've put it on your path to intention. Simply change your inner speech to what you intend the new circumstances of your life to become. Practice thinking from the end by playing the match game and by realigning yourself with the field of intention. Here's a few examples of a no match versus a match for what is inner dialogue about the circumstances of your life. No match. I dislike the work I'm doing and the fact that I'm not appreciated. Match. I'll act upon my inner intuitive impulses to create the work or job of my dreams. No match. I hate the fact that I'm sick so often and always seem to be getting colds. Match. I am divine health. I intend to act in healthy ways and attract the power to strengthen my immune system in every way I can. See, you must learn to assume responsibility for the circumstances of your life without any accompanying guilt. The circumstances of your life aren't the way they are because of karmic debt or because you're being punished. The circumstances of your life, including your health, are yours. Somehow they showed up in your life, so just assume that you participated in all of it. Your inner speech is uniquely your own creation, and it's responsible for attracting more of the circumstances that you don't want. Link up with intention. Use your inner speech to stay focused on what you intend to create, and you'll find yourself regaining the power of your source. 3, another way of thinking is thinking about what always has been, which is an obstacle. When your inner speech focuses on the way things have always been, you act upon your thoughts of what's always been, and the universal all-creating force continues to deliver what always has been. Why? Because your imagination is a part of that which imagined you into existence. It's the force of creation, and you're using it to work against you with your inner speech. Imagine the absolute spirit thinking like this: I can't create life anymore because things haven't worked for me in the past. There have been so many mistakes in the past, and I can't stop thinking about them. How much creating do you think would occur if spirit imagined in this way? How can you possibly connect to the power of intention if your thoughts, which are responsible for your intending, focus on all that's gone before you, which you abhor? The answer is obvious, and so is the solution. Make a shift and catch yourself when you're focusing on what always has been, and move your inner speech to what you intend to manifest. You'll get points in this match game by being on the same team as the absolute spirit. Here's a no match. We've always fought in this relationship. Here's a match. I'll work at being peaceful and not allowing anyone to bring me down. Here's a no match. My children have never shown me any respect. Here's a match. I intend to teach my children to respect all of life, and I'll treat them in the same way. The match items reflect a rapport with the originating spirit. The no-match statements represent interference that you've constructed to keep you from matching up with intention. Any thought that takes you backward is an impediment to manifesting desires. The highest functioning people understand that if you don't have a story, you don't have to live up to it. So get rid of any parts of your story that keep you focused on what always has been. And finally, a 4th way of thinking that's an obstacle to connecting to intention is this: thinking about what they want for you. There's probably a long list of people, most of them relatives, who have strong ideas about what you should be doing, how you should be thinking and worshiping, where you should be living, how you should be scheduling your life, and how much of your time you should be spending with them, especially on special occasions and holidays. Our definition of friendship, thankfully, excludes the manipulation and guilt that we so often put up with in our families. Practice catching yourself when you have a thought of what others want for you, and ask yourself, does this expectation match up with my own? If not, simply laugh at the absurdity of being upset or frustrated over the expectations of others about how you should be running your life. This is a way to match up and become impervious to the criticisms of others, and simultaneously put a stop to the insidious practice of continuing to attract into your life something you don't want. Here's a few match-no-match opportunities to observe here. A no match. I'm so annoyed with my family, they just don't understand me, and they never have. Match. I love my family. They don't see things my way, but I don't expect them to. Here's a no match. I make myself sick trying to please everyone. Here's a match. I'm on purpose and doing what I signed up to do in this lifetime. Here's a no match. I feel so unappreciated by those I serve that it sometimes makes me cry. Here's a match. I do what I do because it's my purpose, and my destiny is to do so. That our words are really decrees of what it is that we want to attract and what we want to create in our life. And I find myself in doing this show for 10 years, watching how people talk and respond when they'll say something like, well, that's very difficult, And I almost always stop them and say, let's look at that word, difficult, because that becomes a decree. It's like, if you say something is going to be difficult, and then in life you're offered an option of doing something that is difficult or doing something that is easy, you're going to pick the easy choice. And for example, people will often say I'll tell them about quitting smoking, about how I quit smoking, and I made a decision to do it, when I was a very young man back in my early 20s. And they'll say, yeah, but that's very difficult, and it's very difficult to overcome addictions. And I've overcome several addictions in my life that I didn't start out believing that it was going to be difficult, because if you do, then the first time that you're tempted to go back to having a cigarette or having that drink or taking that drug or whatever, the first thing that you say to yourself is, well, I can do something that's very difficult, which is to pass by it and have to live with the consequences of wanting it and desiring it. Or I can tell myself that this is really quite easy. All I have to do is not put a cigarette in my mouth. So, as I was reading this, she makes this comment in this chapter on Power Through Metaphysics. She says, I suggest that you spend a day just listening to yourself. Listen to the decrees that you make so casually. Things that people say, and here are some of them that I wrote down and that she had written down as well. Business is rotten. So that becomes like a decree. I've heard people say that. I have a dear friend who runs a golf driving range place, and I've heard him say so many times, business is terrible, business is terrible. When you start believing that it's the economy or that it's business, you're setting out a decree. It's literally a decree. And another is that kids today are a lost generation. So we look at the young people and we think, and we make this kind of a decree, and then every time we see a young kid doing anything, we sort of have this that we live up to. We'll never get there in this traffic. You can't trust anyone these days. It's not safe to walk in the streets. Don't touch that or you'll break it. With my luck, I'll probably, things won't work out. I've often heard people say this over and over again. Well, it's just not going to work out because with my luck, and instead of saying with my luck things are going to work out and I anticipate things are going to be great, that becomes a decree. Instead, we have these decrees about all the things that can't happen. I've never seen it fail. If I eat this, it's going to upset my stomach. I can feel a migraine coming on. They're going to rob you blind. She's a gossip. There's no point in trying, and on and on. And it's like when we think about just casually the words that come out of our mouth, and then she goes on to say, you can see the pattern. You've made the prophecies, and your attitudes govern your actions to the point where you make sure that those prophecies are fulfilled. It says, never forget, every word that you utter is a decree, whether positive or negative. When it is positive, it is manifested in good. When it's negative, only bad can follow. If your words are against someone, it's the same as condemning yourself. That person lives up or down to your expectations, at least where you are concerned. But when you speak with kindness and understanding toward others, they will return kindness and understanding to you. And when something unpleasant happens to you, don't think, I wasn't expecting that. Think instead of statements that you've made in the past that predicted and literally caused your misfortune. And this is the thing, that's what I underlined and wanted to say this morning. When something unpleasant happens to you, don't think, I wasn't really expecting that. Instead, begin to look at all of the statements that you've made in the past that have predicted and literally caused this misfortune, whatever it is that's taking place in your life. It could have been one of those idle statements like the ones that I just mentioned to you. Like every time I make an investment, I lose my shirt, or I have bad luck, or I think with my luck things aren't going to work out, and so on. And so what I want, what I'm doing for myself as well is looking at, I think we can take this, Diane, to a level that isn't just about, these sort of minor things that I'm talking about. I think we can do this with the diseases that show up in our life, with the difficulty in relationships that show up in our life, with the absence of of abundance or prosperity or funding or money that show up in our life. If we were to take and just look at all of the things that exist in our present life and ask ourselves, how many times have I uttered statements or words or had ideas that I have proclaimed and decreed, and then they've showed up in my life.
So this business about forgiveness, now, I want to tell you that whatever you got going for you in your life in the way of animosity or bitterness or anguish or pain or whatever, towards any other human being on our planet, whoever they are and what they've done, that the toxic reaction to that bitterness, it will never let go of you. That forgiveness is like the greatest motivator, if you will, in the world. Towards anyone or anything, hanging on to anything painful or hurtful and so on, I personally believe you've got to let go of. Not only do you have to let go of it, you don't have to make any phone calls. You don't have to let anybody else know that you're doing it. In your heart, you have to purify yourself in such a way that you just simply say, love is forgiving. And that's 2 words, and it's 1 word. When it's 1 word, it's love is forgiving. All right? And that's what it is. You must forgive. And it's also forgiving, so you don't ask anything back of it. After I did that, my whole life became so clear and so focused, and where I was going became so evident, and I left there and I outlined my book the following week. And let me tell you that I have never had a dream about my father since. I have never had a moment's anguish of any kind toward him or anything that he has done. In fact, I am completely at peace with him, and I send him love wherever he is. Whatever is going on in who he is and where he is and what it is, it's all fine. It's all okay. In fact, without those experiences that were the result of some of the things that he had done, my opportunity to help so many people and to create wonderful things for others, including myself, would never ever have materialized without that. And I see that, and I see the need for that, and I believe in it. And I also want to say to you, whatever you got inside of you is not the result of what anybody else puts there. It's the result of what you decide to have inside of you. Think for a minute about an orange. And when I've given this analogy many times, you take an orange and you squeeze it as hard as you can squeeze it, just, all right? And what comes out? These are easy questions, folks. Honest, don't look puzzled. Everybody passes, all right? Nobody fails tonight. What comes out is orange juice. But the question is, why, when you squeeze an orange real hard, does orange juice come out? And the answer to that is because that's what's inside. These are really easy. They get easier. All right? Now, does it matter who squeezes? Does it matter what instrument you use? Does it matter what time of the day you do it? Does it matter how you do it? When you do it? No. When you squeeze an orange, what comes out of an orange is what's inside. When you squeeze a person and put pressure on a person of any kind, and anger and hatred and stress and tension and depression come out, it isn't because of who is doing the squeezing or when they do it or how they choose to do it. It's because that's what's inside. And if you don't have it inside, it can never come out, no matter who you're living with.
no matter how tough it may seem to you. And when somebody cuts you off on the freeway and you're mad as hell and going to get even with them, and you're going to get up in front of them and slow down and make them see what it's like, it isn't because they cut you off that you're so upset. It's because that's what you carry around inside. And when you stop carrying that around inside, nothing that anybody does can upset you. No one can make a fool of you without your consent. Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can depress you. No one can make you anxious. No one can hurt your feelings. No one can make you anything other than what you allow inside. You see, my evolution has brought me to the point of understanding that each human being on our planet must take total responsibility for his own inner development. For his own inner development. And our inner development is something that we ignore a lot as we progress through this whole ladder of life. And I think of a metaphor. The metaphor is like a candle, and the candle flame that is burning inside of you. All right? Now this candle flame, if you take a candle and walk out of here this evening and you see raindrops falling, it'll blow out your candle, and the wind will blow out your candle. There's all kinds of things that are going to happen outside of you that you have absolutely no control over to blow out your candles. Your candles are getting blown out all the time. We have an inner candle flame that must never flicker, though the worst goes before us. And that's perhaps the highest place we can get to in our lives, is to understand that what our own inner development, symbolized by that candle flame, must never change, must never even flicker. It is our responsibility, not only for ourselves, but for our children as well, to raise them to believe that whatever is going on inside of you is entirely up to you. You own it. It is yours.
Your emotions are the inner experience that tell you how much of the divine energy you're summoning for the manifestation of your desires. Feelings can be measuring tools that gauge how you're doing in the manifestation process. An exceptionally positive emotional response indicates that you're summoning the divine energy of intention and allowing that energy to flow to you in a non-resistant manner. Feelings of passion, pure bliss, reverence, unmitigated optimism, unquestioned trust, and even illumination indicate that your desire to manifest success and abundance, for example, have an extremely strong pulling power from the universal source directly to you. You must learn to pay close attention to the presence of these feelings, agents which are in charge of how you clean and purify the connecting link to intention. These emotions tell you precisely how much of the life force you're summoning and how much pulling power you have going for you at that moment. Your feelings indicate how well you're attracting the energy necessary for the fulfillment of your desires. Strong feelings of despair, anxiety, blame, hate, fear, shame, and anger, they're all sending you the message that you want success and abundance, but you don't believe it's possible for you. These negative feelings are your clues to get busy and balance your desires with those of the universal mind of intention, which is the only source of that which you desire. Negative emotions tell you that your pulling power from intention is weak or even non-existent. Positive emotions tell you that you're connecting to and accessing this power of intention. Concerning abundance, one of the most effective ways to increase that pulling power from intention to you is to take the focus off of dollars and place it on creating abundant friendship, security, happiness, health, and even high energy. It's here that you begin to feel those higher emotions, which let you know that you're back in the match game with the all-creating source. As you focus on having abundant happiness, health, security, and friendships, the means for acquiring all of this will be flowing directly toward you. Money is only one of those means, and the faster your vibrational energy around abundance radiates, the more money will show up in significant amounts. These positive feelings as indicators of your pulling power for success and abundance will put you into an active mode for co-creating your intentions. I'm not suggesting that you just have to sit around and wait for everything to fall into place. I'm suggesting that by declaring, I intend to feel successful and attract prosperity, your emotional energy will shift and you'll act as if what you desire were already true. Your actions will be in harmony with the faces of intention, and you'll be provided with what you are rather than attempting to be provided with what's missing. Monitor your emotions as a guidance system for your connection to the universal mind of intention. When you're experiencing low-energy emotions of rage, anger, hatred, anxiety, despair, and the like, That's a clue that while your desires may be strong, they're completely out of sync with the field of intention. Remind yourself in these moments that you want to feel good, and see if you can activate a thought that supports your feeling good. Develop an attitude of gratitude for all that manifests into your life. Be thankful and filled with awe and appreciation, even if what you desire hasn't arrived yet. Even the darkest days of your life are to be looked on with gratitude. Everything coming from Source is on purpose. Be thankful while empowering your reconnection to that from which you and everything else originated. The energy that creates worlds and universes is within you. It works through attraction and energy. Everything vibrates. Everything has a vibratory frequency. As St. Paul once said, God is able to provide you with every blessing in abundance. Tune to God's frequency, and you will soon know it beyond any and all doubt. Remember that your natural state is joy. You are a product of joy and love. It's natural for you to experience these feelings. You've come to believe that feeling bad, anxious, or even depressed is natural, particularly when people and events around you are in low energy modes. Remind yourself as frequently as necessary, I come from peace and joy. Anytime I'm anxious, stressed out, depressed, or fearful, I've abandoned my natural state. Make a conscious choice to select a thought that will activate good feelings. I urge you to choose your thought based exclusively on how it makes you feel rather than how popular it is or how well advertised. Ask yourself, does this new thought make me feel good? No? Well, how about this thought? Not really. Here's another. Ultimately, you'll come up with one that makes you feel good, if only temporarily. Your choice might be the thought of a beautiful sunset, the expression of the face of someone that you really love, or a thrilling experience. It's only important that it resonate within you emotionally and physically as a good feeling. Spend some time observing babies and vow to emulate their joy. You didn't come forth into this world to suffer, to be anxious, fearful, stressful, or depressed. You came from the God consciousness of joy. Just watch little babies. They've done nothing to be so happy about. They don't work, they poop in their pants, and they have no goals other than to expand and grow and explore this amazing world. They love everyone. They're completely entertained by a plastic bottle or a goofy face, and they're in a constant state of love. Yet they have no teeth, no hair, and they're pudgy and flatulent. How could they possibly be so joyful and easily pleased? Because they're still in harmony with the source that intended them here. They have no resistance to being joyful. Be like that baby you once were in terms of being joyful. You don't need a reason to be happy. Your desire to be so is sufficient. Rabindranath Tagore, one of my favorite spiritual teachers. I slept, he says, and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. It can all be joy in your inner and outer worlds. Sleep and dream of joy. And remember, above all else, you feel good, not because the world is right, but your world is right because you feel good.
You know, when we're born, a ladder, Rumi said, when you are born, a ladder is placed before you to help you to escape from this world, to teach you that you're in this world, but you're not of this world. You know, and as you're always moving toward this place of, and at the top of the ladder is this thing called divine love. And it's always a movement toward that. And many times, the rungs on that ladder are rungs that are tough, are what you call crises, you know. But in fact, they are great teachers. I haven't had alcohol in my body in 25 years. I don't look back on the days that I did drink or do drugs and so on as anything other than just tremendous teachers for me. They were probably one of the most important decisions I ever made in my life, and I was never even an alcoholic. I quit drinking because my teacher in India said, if you want to reach your highest maximum potential, you'll have to live a life of total sobriety because you're destroying brain cells when you put alcohol into your system. And if you came here with big dharma. And if you want to fulfill that dharma, you have to keep your brain, you know, where it's always growing instead of where it's always deteriorating. And that was the day I just decided that I wasn't going to do that. I've been through divorce. I've been through being left. I've been through cancer. I've been through a heart attack. These are all, every single one of those, like every advance that you make in your life, is almost always preceded by some kind of a fall, some kind of a, you know, it's like when I always give the example, when I was in high school, I was on the track team. I was the high jumper on the track team. I didn't jump very high because I'm white. And white men don't jump. They even made a movie about it, okay? But anyway, so the way that you get over the bar is you run up to the bar as fast as you can, you get down as low as you can. And in the process of getting down low, you generate the energy to propel yourself over the bar. That's how and the lower you get and the faster you go, the more energy you can generate that way, you propel yourself to a higher place. That's sort of a metaphor for everything in life. If you are in a place of crisis, and you're in a place of where you're low and down and hurt, that's almost always means that you're going to have a spiritual elevation. You're going to move yourself to a higher place. That will give you the energy to propel yourself upward. And I've just always believed that now stay in a place of gratitude for everything that comes along. And instead of, I've always said there are 3 ways to reach enlightenment, okay? One is enlightenment through suffering. So with enlightenment through suffering, what you do is you have a experience. Let's say you did a lot of drinking, or you were carousing, or whatever it may be, you were sickly or whatever, and then or somebody breaks up with you and so on, and then you suffer, and oh my God, how did this happen, and why did I do that, and why did she leave me, and how could that have, and then you go through like 10 years. So that's a 10-year chunk of your life where you're suffering, and ultimately you get to this place where you finally, and almost everyone will tell you, about that crisis. When I look back on it, I realize that it was what allowed me to get to a higher place. So that's one way. The second way is enlightenment through living in the present. That is, when a crisis comes along, and you find yourself upset or hurt or whatever, instead of waiting 10 more years of suffering, what you do is you stop yourself right in this moment and you say, what can I do what do I have to learn here? How can I get down on my knees and be thankful to God for this opportunity which is being presented to me, and so on. So you're taking a hold of it in the present moment, which is what I do now with any crisis that may show up in my life. Is I just say I don't have any more 10-year periods. You only get so many of those, and then it's checkout time. So it's so now it's like you get a hold of it right now. You say, what do I have to learn from this? Like I've been suffering with this neck thing for 7 or 8 months, but every day I say thank you for it, and how much that it has taught me to be more compassionate toward people who live in chronic pain, for one example, and so many others, to be less judgmental, to say, to find the place within me where I can heal myself and so on. So it becomes an impetus for my growth. That's the second way to enlightenment. Now the third way to enlightenment is where you want to get to, and that's where you can get out in front of the crisis before it arrives. And you can see it coming. And you know that you can play it out you can play out the whole dialogue in advance. So that you're in a argument, whatever, with your spouse or whatever, and you know that she says something, and normally your way of reacting is, well, then, if you think, I'm going to make me wrong, then I'm going to make you wrong, and if I say this, and you play out the dialogue, if I say this, then she's going to say that, and then I'm going to say this, and then she's going to say, then I'm going to do this, and then I'm probably going to walk out, and I'm going to be pissed off for a while, and then, it's like, and you play out, but you do this instantaneously. And you stop and you say, honey, that's a good point. You're right about that. I'll really give it some thought. And it doesn't matter. You have a choice to be right or to be kind, and you just pick kind. It's just very simple. Nothing changes. She's still wrong. At least in your mind she is, or whatever. But you're free. You're free. And so you've gotten out in front of it. And you can go through life living peacefully and in grace by, instead of suffering and instead of struggling in the present moment to figure out what the problem is, you just start seeing that stuff coming, so that when you're walking down a street and across the street you see someone that might be dangerous, or this might be a situation I don't want to be in, instead of going over there, and even potentially creating some kind of, you just say, well, you know what, I just think I'll just walk around this way, and you've avoided it all. You don't even have to deal with it. You don't have to get your macho ego involved in it. You're just simply getting to a point where you can anticipate this, since there's no time in the universe anyway, then you just let the time thing go, and you just create for yourself exactly the world that you want to be. And as I've said hundreds and thousands of times, it's on my stationery, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
The world is a different world when you look at it from like this neck thing that I have. I look at it totally differently than I would have even 10 years ago. And now it's just grace. It's just grace, and whatever it is I'm to learn from it, I'm getting.
Willingness. How willing are you to attract into your life what you want and to rid yourself of the excuses? The willingness means suspending all of your blame. It means taking total responsibility for everything that is in your life, including the memes that were handed to you by your well-meaning parents and their neighbors and so on. To say, I did it all. It also means surrendering. Willingness means, you know, in the recovery movement, and many of you know that I have been without alcohol now for 20 years plus, and just gave it up. And the reason that I gave it up, and the reason I was able to do it, was through being willing to say, I surrender. I just let go. And what? Let God, right? And allow this divine source. You see, if the ego was in charge of you, then why would you get old? I was sitting in an interview today with Kenny Blanchard, and he's turning 70 and I'm turning 69. And I said, you know, if the ego was really in charge, we wouldn't be sitting here in these 68-year-old bodies. We'd keep it about 23, wouldn't we? Because, you know, that's when we feel that we're the most powerful, and when we have, but there's something else that's in charge. And not just in charge of our bodies and its aging, but there's something you have to surrender to that's even bigger than all of us. And you have to be willing to do that, to know that everything that you came here to do is a part of that. Willingness means shedding all things that you're unwilling to do. I remember when I did my very first PBS special back in 1999, and I went around the country and I visited PBS stations in every market. It made no difference to me how many people were there, whether it was a tiny little market or a very large market. Whatever they asked me to do, I said, I have nothing on my unwillingness category. And I made over 170 station visits, very often paying my own expenses and living on a very, very tight budget. But I knew that I wanted to take the messages that I'm speaking about here and that I spoke about in my earlier programs, and there was nothing I was unwilling to do. I did it when Erroneous Zones was published back in 1976. Bought up the first 2 printings, went across the country, paid for my own expenses, 14-hour days doing interviews, whatever it might be. Whatever it takes. Just have that willingness. Virginia Woolf. No one's afraid of her, right? She had a wonderful line. She said, arrange whatever pieces come your way. Whatever it is that comes your way, no matter how tough it may be, whatever, arrange whatever pieces come your way and make it work for you. I'd like to speak for just a moment about passion as a principle for eliminating excuses. Create for yourself the habit of enthusiasm about everything. When I watched the interview with Felipe, who was the guy who was the man on wire, he said, you have to have passion every single day. And what does the word enthusiasm mean? Entheos, God. Yasm, within, in Greek. The God within. That's the meaning of, when you have passion for anything inside of you, you are really, that's God speaking to you. If you have total passion for something and you just won't let go of it, regardless of what the circumstances of your life are, you will find a way. The universe will provide you with a way. The strange synchronistic experiences and serendipities that seem to show up, they show up much more frequently and right on time when you're living from a place of passion. No passion? Continue with your excuses. Passion is the creative source inside of you. Walk with it. I do it every day. Hold hands with it. Make it your number one relationship in life, not to your spouse, not to your children, not even to yourself. Make your number one relationship to your source, to God, to that place from which you returned, to which all things return. Live from a place of passion, and you will be guided.
If you view yourself disrespectfully, you've forsaken or cast aside, or at the very least, you've sullied your connection to the power of intention. It's important that you recognize that your entire worldview is based on how much respect you have for yourself. It has nothing to do with what others may think of you. Your self-respect comes from the self, and the self alone. If you fail to respect yourself, you're showing contempt for the process of creation. How do you return to the self in self-respect? Well, rather than judging those who judge you, thereby lowering your self-respect, send them a silent blessing of forgiveness, and imagine them doing the same toward you. You're connecting to intention and guaranteeing that you'll always respect the divinity that you are. You've cleared the path to be able to enjoy the great power that is yours in that field of intention. 10 ways or 10 steps to practice nurturing your intention to respect yourself at all times. Here's step 1. Look into a mirror. Make eye connection with yourself and say, I love me, as many times as possible during your day. I love me. These 3 magic words help you maintain your self-respect. Your immediate impulse might be to see this as an expression of your ego's desire to be superior to everyone else, but this is not an ego statement at all. It's an affirmation of self-respect. Transcend that ego mind and affirm your love for yourself and your connection to the Spirit of God. This doesn't make you superior to anyone. It makes you equal to all and celebrates that you're a piece of God. Affirm it in order to be respectful of that which intended you here. Affirm it because it's the way you're going to stay connected to your source and regain the power of intention. I love me. Say it proudly and be that image of love and self-respect. Step 2. Write the following affirmation and repeat it over and over again to yourself. I am whole and perfect as I was created. Carry this thought with you wherever you go. Have it laminated and placed in your pocket or on your dashboard or on your refrigerator or even next to your bed. Allow the words to become a source of high energy and self-respect. By simply carrying these words with you and being in the same space with them, their energy will flow directly to you. Over and over, remind yourself, I'm not my body, I'm not my accumulations, I'm not my achievements, I'm not my reputation. I am whole and perfect as I was created. Step 3. Extend more respect to others and to all of life. Perhaps the greatest secret of self-esteem is to appreciate other people more. The easiest way to do this is to see the unfolding of God in them. Look past the judgments of others' appearances, failures and successes, their status in society, their wealth or their lack of it, and extend appreciation and love to the source from which they came. Everyone is a child of God. Everyone. Remember, when you judge another, you do not define them. You define yourself as someone who needs to judge. The same applies to judgments directed at you. Step 4. Affirm to yourself and all others that you meet, I belong. A sense of belonging is one of the highest attributes on Abraham Maslow's pyramid of self-actualization. Feeling that you don't belong or you're in the wrong place can be due to a lack of self-respect. Respect yourself and your divinity by knowing that everyone belongs. This should never come into question. Your presence here in this universe is proof alone that you belong here. The wisdom of creation intended you to be here, in this place, in this family, with these siblings and parents, occupying this precious space in this time. Say it to yourself and say it over and over again. I belong, and so does everyone else. No one is here by accidents. There are no accidents in this universe. Step 5. Remind yourself that you're never alone. My self-respect stays intact as long as I know that it's impossible for me to be alone. I have what I call a senior partner who's never abandoned me and who stuck with me even in moments when I had seemingly deserted my source. I feel that if the universal mind has enough respect to allow me to come here and to work through me and to protect me in times when I strayed onto dangerous non-spiritual turf, then this very partnership deserves my reciprocal respect. Step 6. Respect your body.
You've been provided with a perfect body to house your inner invisible being for a few brief moments in eternity. Regardless of its size or shape or color or any imagined infirmities, it's a perfect creation for the purpose that you were intended here for. You don't need to work at getting healthy. Health is something you already have if you don't disturb it. You can begin the fulfillment of this intention to live a life of self-respect by honoring the temple that houses you. Go within, listen to your body, and treat it with all of the dignity and love that your self-respect demands. Step 7. Meditate. Always meditate to stay in conscious contact with your source, which always respects you. I can't say this enough. Meditation is a way to experience what the five senses can't detect. When you're connected to the field of intention, you're connected to the wisdom that's within you. The divine wisdom has great respect for you, and it cherishes you while you're here. Regardless of all that goes on around you, when you enter into that sacred space of meditation, all doubts about your value as an esteemed creation dissolve. You'll emerge from the solemnity of meditation feeling connected to your source and enjoying respect for all beings, particularly yourself. Step 8. Make amends with adversaries. The act of making amends sends out a signal of respect for your adversaries. By radiating this forgiveness energy outward, you'll find this same kind of respectful, positive energy flowing back toward you. If you're filled with rage toward anyone, there's a huge part of you that resents the presence of this debilitating energy. Take a moment right here and now to simply face that person who stands out in your mind as someone you hurt or directed hurt towards you, and tell him or her that you'd like to make amends. You'll notice how much better you feel. The good feeling of having cleared the air is self-respect. It takes much more courage and strength of character and inner conviction to make amends than it does to hang on to the low energy feelings. Step 9. Always remember the self in self-respect. In order to do this, you must recognize that the opinions of others towards you aren't facts, they're opinions. When I speak to an audience of 500 people, there are 500 opinions of me in the room at the end of the evening. I'm none of those opinions. I can't be responsible for how they view me. The only thing I can be responsible for is my own character, and this is true for every single one of us. If I respect myself, then I'm relying on the self in self-respect. And finally, step 10. Always be in a state of gratitude. Be an appreciator rather than a depreciator of everything that shows up in your life. Thank you, God, for everything.